The restaurant door swings open as two men in black suits scan the room, hands reaching inside their jackets. A desperate millionaire, tears streaming down his face, remains oblivious to the danger until a small, ragged girl tugs frantically at his sleeve. But no one could have predicted what would happen next. Where are you watching from today? Drop a comment below and hit that like and subscribe button for more life-changing stories that will leave you speechless. Ryan Mitchell sat alone in his penthouse office, staring at the Manhattan skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. At 31, he'd built TechVault from a college dorm project into a $987 million cybersecurity empire. The Forbes cover from last month, America's youngest security titan, lay on his glass desk beside an untouched scotch. His phone vibrated. Ryan's stomach clenched as he saw his CFO's name. This wasn't the scheduled call. "James, tell me it's not true." The silence on the other end confirmed his worst fears before James spoke. "The SEC filing just went public. The vulnerability was in all our systems. Every client's data was exposed for 17 hours before we patched it." Ryan's hand trembled. "How bad?" "Complete breach. Government contracts, banking clients, healthcare systems, all compromised. Lawsuits are already being filed. Stock is down 78% and falling. The board is meeting in an hour." James paused. "Without you?" The room seemed to tilt. 7 years of work, gone in 17 hours. The clients who'd trusted him with their most sensitive data. The employees who'd believed in his vision. "Ryan, you need to prepare for the reality that by tomorrow, TechVault won't exist, and your personal assets will be frozen during investigations." After James hung up, Ryan sat motionless as the sun set over the city. His phone exploded with notifications, news alerts, text messages, emails, but he couldn't bring himself to look. Instead, he grabbed his keys and walked out, ignoring his assistant's concerned questions. He drove aimlessly through the city, his mind replaying every decision, every shortcut, every time he'd prioritized growth over security protocols. The irony wasn't lost on him. A cybersecurity company destroyed by a security breach. Ryan eventually parked outside Emilio's, a small Italian restaurant in Chelsea where nobody would recognize him. He needed food, though he had no appetite. Needed normalcy, though his life had just imploded. The hostess seated him in a corner booth. Ryan ordered a whiskey neat and stared at the menu without seeing it. His phone continued vibrating in his pocket. Finally, he pulled it out. The headlines were worse than he'd imagined. TechVault collapse threatens national security. SEC launches criminal investigation into TechVault CEO. Tech Wunderkind's empire crumbles overnight. And then, sources report TechVault CEO Ryan Mitchell may face criminal charges. Criminal charges, prison time. Ryan's chest tightened until he couldn't breathe. The restaurant blurred around him as panic set in. His empire, his reputation, his freedom, all vanishing before his eyes. "Are you okay, mister?" The small voice barely registered. Ryan looked up to see a little girl standing by his table. She wore a faded pink dress, sneakers with holes, and had intelligent eyes that seemed too old for her face. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. "You're crying," she said matter-of-factly, offering him a crumpled napkin from her pocket. Ryan realized tears were streaming down his cheeks. He'd been so lost in his spiral that he hadn't noticed. "I'm fine," he managed, taking the napkin automatically. "Where are your parents?" The girl pointed toward the kitchen. "My mom works here. I'm Lily. I'm 7. She studied him with unnerving intensity. "You look really sad." Ryan attempted a smile. "Just having a bad day, Lily." "My mom says everyone has bad days." Lily shrugged. "Even people who look like they have everything." From the mouth of babes, Ryan thought bitterly. He had indeed had everything, past tense. Lily lingered at Ryan's table, seemingly unbothered by his tear-stained face or disheveled appearance. Mom says I shouldn't bother customers, but you looked like you needed a friend. Despite himself, Ryan felt a flicker of warmth at her guileless concern. That's kind of you, but I'm sure your mum needs help. Or she's washing dishes until 11. The babysitter cancelled. Lily frowned. Mum says we need the money more than I need sleep. Ryan's throat tightened. His world was collapsing, but this child and her mother were fighting just to survive each day. The perspective shift was jarring. Are you famous? Lily asked, eyeing his expensive watch. You look like those people on TV who have lots of money. I used to have money, Ryan admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. Not anymore. Lily nodded sagely. That happens. We had to leave our apartment last year when Mom got sick. Now we live in a small room at Ms. Jenkins' house. Before Ryan could respond, a harried-looking woman in a server's uniform hurried over. Lily, I'm so sorry, sir. She knows better than to bother customers. Her name tag read Sarah. She wasn't bothering me, Ryan assured her. Actually, she was helping. Sarah looked skeptical but grateful. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands were red and chapped. Lily, go sit at the staff table and finish your homework. I'll bring you some dinner soon. It's okay, Mom. This man is sad because he lost all his money, Lily announced. Sarah's face flushed with embarrassment. Lily, that's not appropriate. It's fine, Ryan interrupted, managing a genuine smile. She's not wrong. Sarah studied him, recognition dawning in her eyes. You're that tech CEO from the news. Her voice lowered. I'm sorry about what happened. Ryan stiffened, bracing for judgment or criticism. Instead, Sarah simply said, Can I get you something to eat on the house? The simple kindness nearly broke him. Thank you, but I couldn't. Mom makes the best spaghetti, Lily interjected. It makes people feel better. Spaghetti would be perfect, Ryan conceded. As Sarah hurried away, Lily remained. My dad lost all his money too. That's why he left us. The blunt statement hung in the air between them. I'm sorry to hear that, Ryan said finally. Lily shrugged. Mom says he was weak, but she's strong enough for both of us. She glanced toward the kitchen. I try to be strong too. Ryan's phone buzzed again. Another news alert. Tech Vault clients fleeing as data breach expands. His hands began to shake again as the reality of his situation crashed back over him. Everything he'd built, everyone who'd trusted him, all destroyed. His vision tunneled, breaths coming in short gasps. Mister? Lily's voice seemed far away. You're turning really white. Ryan couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. The panic attack gripped him with physical force. His chest constricted painfully as his heart hammered against his ribs. Through the fog of panic, he felt small hands grabbing his arm. Put your head down, Lily commanded, pushing against his shoulder. Mom does this when she gets scared about bills. Head down, breathe slow. Somehow Ryan complied, leaning forward until his forehead touched the cool tablecloth. Lily's small hand patted his back awkwardly. Count to 5 when you breathe in, she instructed. Then 7 when you breathe out, like a game. Ryan followed her directions, focusing on the numbers rather than the catastrophic thoughts swirling in his mind. Gradually, his breathing steadied, the vice around his chest loosening incrementally. When he finally sat up, Lily was watching him with concern. Better? Better, he confirmed hoarsely. Where did you learn that? Mum's doctor taught us when she had her sad sickness. Lily twisted a strand of hair around her finger. She couldn't get out of bed for a long time after Dad left. Ryan's gaze drifted to Sarah, efficiently serving tables while occasionally glancing toward her daughter. A single mother battling depression, working late hours washing dishes, yet still finding small kindnesses for a stranger in crisis. It was a humbling moment of clarity. Ryan had lost his company, his reputation, perhaps even his freedom. But this woman and her daughter had endured their own collapse and were still standing, still helping others. The restaurant door chimed as it opened. Lily, who had been facing the entrance, suddenly froze. Her expression changed from concern to frightened in an instant. "Those men," Lily whispered, her eyes fixed on the entrance. "They look like the ones who came for our neighbor." Ryan turned to look over his shoulder. Two men in identical black suits stood in the doorway, scanning the restaurant methodically. Their rigid postures and alert eyes marked them as professionals, not typical dinner patrons. One touched his ear briefly, murmuring something. "What happened to your neighbor?" Ryan asked quietly, unease creeping up his spine. "They took him away. Mum said he was in trouble with important people." Lily tugged urgently on Ryan's sleeve. "They're coming this way." Ryan's instincts screamed danger. The men's focused scanning, their coordinated movements, they were looking for someone specific. For him, federal agents, corporate security from one of his now former clients, private security hired by his board to find him. In his tailspin of self-pity, Ryan hadn't considered that people might be actively looking for him. People who wanted answers, retribution, or worse. "Is there a back door?" he asked Lily urgently. She nodded. "Through the kitchen where Mom works. I need to leave now." Ryan fumbled for his wallet, dropping a $100 bill on the table. "Tell your mom I'm sorry, but this is important." Lily grabbed his hand. "This way, I'll show you." As Ryan stood, one of the men made eye contact with him from across the room. Recognition flashed across his face, and he nudged his partner, both now moving purposefully toward Ryan's table. "Mitchell, stay where you are," one called out, loud enough to turn heads throughout the restaurant. Ryan didn't wait to find out what they wanted. Instinct took over as he followed Lily, who was already tugging him toward a swinging door marked "Employees Only." They burst into the bustling kitchen, startling the staff. Sarah looked up from a sink full of dishes, confusion evident on her face. "Lily, what are you—" "Bad men are after him, Mom," Lily explained breathlessly. "Like Mr. Rodriguez." Understanding dawned on Sarah's face. She pointed toward a metal door at the back. "Service alley. It loops around to 10th Avenue. "Thank you," Ryan managed, heart pounding. "I'm sorry to involve you." Sarah grabbed a dish towel, quickly drying her hands. "Go. We'll stall them." The kitchen door swung open behind them. "Federal agents!" a stern voice announced. "Nobody move!" Panic surged through Ryan. Federal agents confirmed his worst fears. This wasn't just about his company's collapse. This was about criminal charges. Sarah stepped forward, deliberately dropping a stack of plates with a tremendous crash. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry!" "Iday," she exclaimed loudly, creating instant chaos as kitchen staff rushed to help. Ryan used the distraction to slip through the back door, emerging into a narrow alley lined with dumpsters and stacked crates. The evening air hit his lungs as he ran, hearing shouting behind him. He reached 10th Avenue and flagged down a passing taxi, jumping inside before looking back toward the restaurant. The two agents emerged from the alley, scanning the street, but the taxi was already pulling into traffic. "Where to?" the driver asked. Ryan had no answer. His apartment would be the first place they'd look. His office was definitely off limits. Friends and family would be questioned, their homes watched. "Just drive," he managed. "I'll tell you where to stop." As the taxi navigated through Manhattan traffic, Ryan's mind raced. What did the federal agents want? Were they arresting him? Was there a warrant? The data breach was catastrophic, but was it criminal? His phone buzzed with an unknown number. Ryan hesitated, then answered. "Mitchell, this is Agent Donovan, FBI. We know you're in a taxi heading north on 10th. Pull over now. We just need to talk." Ryan's blood ran cold. They were tracking his phone. Without hesitation, he lowered the window and threw his phone out into traffic, hearing a satisfying crunch as it shattered on the pavement. "Hey!" the driver protested. "What are you doing?" "Sorry," Ryan said, heart hammering. "Change of plans. Take me to Port Authority bus terminal." The taxi driver eyed him suspiciously in the rearview mirror, but complied. Ryan slumped in the seat, mind whirling. What had he just done? Running from federal agents had transformed his corporate disaster into something far worse. But why were they pursuing him so aggressively just hours after the breach became public? Unless there was more to the story than he knew, unless someone wanted to silence him before he could tell his side. Ryan thought of Lily and her mother, who'd helped a stranger without question. They'd put themselves at risk for him. The realization settled like a weight on his conscience. Whatever happened next, he couldn't let them suffer consequences for his actions. The bus terminal bustled with evening commuters, providing perfect anonymity for Ryan as he purchased a ticket to Philadelphia with cash. He had no intention of going to Philadelphia. It was merely misdirection. He'd exit the terminal through another door and figure out his next move. As he waited in line, Ryan's mind kept returning to Lily and Sarah. They'd helped him without hesitation, risking their own security. The contrast with his board members, who'd cut him loose at the first sign of trouble, wasn't lost on him. After buying his ticket, Ryan slipped into a bathroom, splashed water on his face, and assessed his situation. He had approximately $800 in cash, no phone, no laptop, no change of clothes. His credit cards would be tracked if used. Within hours, his face would be plastered across every news outlet in the country, if it wasn't already. He needed a safe place to think, to understand what was happening, to figure out why federal agents were hunting him so aggressively. Ryan had made mistakes, but nothing that warranted this level of pursuit. Something else was happening, something beyond the breach itself. 20 minutes later, Ryan checked into a small motel in Queens, using cash and a fake name. The tired desk clerk barely glanced at him. In his sparse room, Ryan turned on the television and found a news channel. There he was, his corporate headshot beside the breaking news banner. FBI seeks Tech Vault CEO in connection with national security breach. The reporter's voice filled the room. Sources close to the investigation suggest Mitchell may have deliberately engineered the security failure, potentially selling sensitive government data to foreign entities. The breach affected several classified defense systems protected by Tech Vault's security protocols. Ryan sank onto the bed, stunned. Deliberately engineered, selling data. It was absurd, impossible. He'd built Tech Vault to protect people, not exploit them. "This is a setup," he whispered to the empty room. But who would do this? Who would benefit from destroying him so completely? The next morning, Ryan ventured out wearing a baseball cap purchased from a street vendor and sunglasses. At a corner store, he bought a burner phone with cash. He needed information, needed to understand what was happening. There was only one person he could trust completely, his former mentor and professor, Dr. Eleanor Wells. She'd helped him start Tech Vault and had remained his confidant even after selling her shares 3 years ago. If anyone would believe in his innocence, it would be Eleanor. Ryan called from a secluded corner of a busy park. "Eleanor, it's me. Don't say my name." "Thank God," her familiar voice responded. "Are you safe?" "For now." "Eleanor, I'm being set up. I didn't do any of this." "I know that," she said firmly. "Listen carefully. This is bigger than a data breach. The vulnerability was inserted into your system externally, but using your personal access codes." Ryan's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. I never shared those codes with anyone." "Exactly. Someone went to extraordinary lengths to make this look like you're doing. The question is why?" "Who would benefit from destroying Tech Vault?" Ryan asked, mind racing. "That's what you need to figure out. But not alone." Eleanor paused. "There's something else. Your girl from the restaurant. Sarah and Lily? How do you know about them?" "They're on the news. The FBI questioned them after you fled. They're saying they don't know you, that the little girl thought you were in trouble, and they helped without understanding who you were." Relief flooded Ryan. "Are they okay?" "For now. But Ryan, be careful. If whoever framed you thinks they helped you knowingly, they could be in danger too." The call ended, with Eleanor promising to do what she could from her end. Ryan sat on a park bench, processing this new information. Someone had deliberately framed him, using his own access codes. But who and why involved national security unless they needed him completely discredited, unless they needed him to run, to look guilty? Ryan's thoughts were interrupted by a television visible through a cafe window across the street. The screen showed Sarah and Lily outside their apartment building, surrounded by reporters. Sarah looked terrified, shielding Lily from cameras as they pushed through the crowd. The caption read, "Restaurant worker and daughter questioned about aiding fugitive CEO." A sickening realization hit Ryan. By running, he'd inadvertently put them directly in the crosshairs. The media was hounding them. If his enemies were watching, Sarah and Lily would now be connected to him in the public narrative. Ryan had been focused solely on his own survival, but now he understood. He couldn't protect himself without also protecting them. They were vulnerable because of him. And unlike Ryan, they had no resources, no connections, nowhere to run. He needed to help them, but how? He was a fugitive with limited cash and no resources. The moment he approached them, he'd risk exposing them further. Or worse, lead dangerous people directly to them. Then an idea struck him. He couldn't approach them directly, but there was someone who could. Eleanor agreed to Ryan's plan without hesitation. As a respected academic with no obvious connection to the current scandal, she could approach Sarah and Lily without raising suspicion. By that evening, she'd made contact, presenting herself as a concerned citizen offering temporary shelter away from the media frenzy. From his motel room, Ryan watched the burner phone anxiously until it finally buzzed with Eleanor's message. Package secure, proceeding to delivery point. The delivery point was Eleanor's lakeside cabin in the Catskills, remote enough to avoid detection, but close enough to reach in a few hours. Ryan had spent summers there during college, learning coding from Eleanor while recovering from his mother's death. It was the perfect sanctuary. Ryan took elaborate precautions to reach the cabin, involving 3 bus changes, a taxi, and finally a 5-mile hike through dense forest. It was nearly midnight when he spotted the cabin's warm lights through the trees. He approached cautiously, giving the bird call signal he and Eleanor had established years ago. The door opened immediately, revealing Eleanor's familiar silhouette. "Quick," she whispered, ushering him inside. The cabin was exactly as he remembered. Rustic wooden furniture, walls lined with books, the comforting smell of pine and old paper. But his attention was drawn immediately to the small figure curled up on the sofa, fast asleep beneath a patchwork quilt. Lily looked even smaller in sleep. Her face finally relaxed from the worry he'd seen at the restaurant. Sarah sat beside her daughter, eyes wary as she assessed Ryan. "You've put us in danger," she said quietly, no accusation in her tone, just statement of fact. "I know," Ryan acknowledged, dropping his backpack. "I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Eleanor explained some of it," Sarah said, gently stroking Lily's hair. "You believe you're being framed." "I know I am," Ryan corrected. "The question is why and by whom." Eleanor brought coffee for all of them, her academic precision evident in the methodical way she laid out what she'd learned. The breach originated from an encrypted server in Estonia, but the commands used your authentication protocols. The data stolen wasn't random. It specifically targeted files related to 3 government projects. "Which projects?" Ryan asked. "Prometheus, Blackfish, and Sentinel." Eleanor watched his reaction carefully. "Mean anything to you?" Ryan's brow furrowed. Prometheus was a cybersecurity framework for nuclear facilities. Blackfish involved election systems. But Sentinel... He hesitated. Sentinel was classified. I wasn't even allowed to know what it protected. "That's interesting," Eleanor mused. "Because Sentinel is the only project where data wasn't just stolen, it was altered." The implication hung in the air. This wasn't just theft, it was sabotage. Someone's using me as a scapegoat, Ryan realized. They needed a villain, someone whose disgrace would distract from whatever they're really doing with Sentinel. Sarah, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. That explains why they're hunting you so aggressively. It's not about punishment. It's about silencing you before you can prove your innocence. Ryan was struck by her quick understanding. Exactly. So what's your plan? Sarah asked directly. Because right now, you're dragging my daughter into something dangerous, and I need to know it's worth the risk. The blunt question hit Ryan like a physical blow. He'd been so focused on clearing his name that he hadn't fully considered the danger he was bringing to these innocent people. You're right, he admitted. You should take Lily and go somewhere safe, somewhere disconnected from me. I have enough cash to get you started somewhere new. That's not what I asked, Sarah replied firmly. I asked about your plan. Running forever isn't an option for any of us. They've connected us to you now, which means Lily and I are already involved whether we like it or not. Ryan looked at her in surprise. You're willing to help? I'm willing to end this, Sarah clarified, so my daughter can have her life back, so we all can. Eleanor nodded approvingly. Sarah has experience that might be useful. She wasn't always a dishwasher. Ryan turned to Sarah with newfound curiosity. What did you do before? Cybersecurity analyst for the State Department, Sarah said with a hint of irony. Before budget cuts, before my ex-husband's gambling debts, before life fell apart. Ryan stared at her, recalibrating everything he'd assumed about this woman. You understand what we're up against. Better than most. Sarah's eyes held a determined glint. And I know that whoever framed you has made one critical mistake. What's that? They've left you alive, Sarah said simply, which means you can still fight back. Dawn broke over the Catskills as Ryan, Sarah, and Eleanor gathered around the cabin's kitchen table, surrounded by Eleanor's old laptops. They'd been working through the night, piecing together the puzzle of Ryan's framing. It has to be someone with intimate knowledge of Tech Vault systems, Ryan said, rubbing his tired eyes. And my personal access protocols. Someone who benefits from your destruction, Eleanor added, and from whatever they're doing with Project Sentinel. Sarah, who had proven herself remarkably skilled despite years away from cybersecurity, looked up from her screen. I think I found something. The breach used your authentication, but the digital signature has microscopic anomalies, inconsistencies in the keystroke patterns. Keystroke analysis, Ryan breathed. We use it as a secondary verification system. Every user has unique typing patterns. Exactly, Sarah nodded. Whoever did this had access to your codes, but they couldn't perfectly mimic how you type. The differences are small, but they're there. Can we prove it wasn't me? Ryan asked eagerly. Not definitively, not without comparing it to samples of your current typing, Sarah admitted, but it's a start. Eleanor's phone chimed with a news alert. They're escalating. The FBI is now saying you had connections to foreign intelligence. They're painting you as a traitor, not just a thief. Ryan's stomach twisted. They're making sure no one will believe me, even if I do come forward. A small voice interrupted their discussion. Is he in big trouble? They turned to see Lily, hair tousled from sleep, watching them from the hallway. Sarah immediately went to her daughter. Honey, you should be sleeping. I heard talking, Lily explained, her eyes fixed on Ryan. Are the bad men still looking for you? Ryan nodded solemnly. Yes, but we're working on fixing it. Lily considered this. Like when Tommy Jenkins told the teacher I stole his lunch money, but I didn't. We had to find proof. Despite everything, Ryan smiled. Exactly like that, just bigger. We'll figure it out, Sarah assured her daughter, leading her back to bed. But you need to rest. When Sarah returned, her expression had hardened. We need to move faster. The longer this drags on, the more danger we're all in. We need access to TechVault's internal systems, Ryan said. That's where we'll find the real evidence of tampering. Impossible, Eleanor countered. The building will be swarming with federal agents. Not the building, Ryan clarified. The emergency backup servers. After a security incident in our first year, I created an isolated backup system that mirrors our main servers, but operates on a 48-hour delay. It's off-site, off-books. Only 3 people know about it. Let me guess, Sarah said. You, your CFO, and my head of security, Marcus Chen. Ryan's expression darkened. Who hasn't returned my calls since this started? Eleanor exchanged glances with Sarah. Could Marcus be involved? I trusted him completely, Ryan said, but he'd have both the access and the knowledge to pull this off. Where's this backup server? Sarah asked. An abandoned Cold War bunker in the Adirondacks. I bought it anonymously years ago. Ryan hesitated. But we'd need to verify if Marcus is involved before we make any moves. If he's innocent, he could help us. If he's behind this, then we'd be walking into a trap, Sarah finished. Lily's voice came again from the hallway. Mr. Marcus from your company pictures? The man who visited the restaurant. All 3 adults turned sharply. Lily, what do you mean? Ryan asked, alarm rising. The man who watched you at the restaurant, Lily said matter-of-factly. Before the men in black suits came. He sat at the counter and watched you. He had the same face as the man in the pictures on your company website. Mum showed me on her phone. Sarah looked stricken. Lily, why didn't you tell me this before? You didn't ask, Lily shrugged. And he didn't do anything bad. He just watched and made a phone call. Then he left before the scary men came. Ryan, Sarah, and Eleanor exchanged shocked glances as the implication became clear. Marcus had been tracking Ryan. He knew where Ryan was, had possibly followed him there, and then, shortly after Marcus left, federal agents arrived. Marcus set me up, Ryan whispered, the betrayal cutting deep. He's been watching me this whole time. But why? Eleanor asked. What does he gain from destroying you and TechVault? Ryan's mind raced through possibilities until a terrible thought struck him. Unless TechVault wasn't the target at all. What if the company was just collateral damage? What if I was the target all along? Because of something you know, Sarah suggested. Or something I built, Ryan said slowly, a cold realization dawning. Project Sentinel. I designed the security framework, but never knew what it protected. What if that's what this is about? What if Marcus needed me discredited so he could alter my work without scrutiny? We need to access that backup server, Sarah decided. It's our only chance to find proof. It's too dangerous, Ryan protested. If Marcus is involved and realizes we're onto him, we don't have a choice, Sarah interrupted firmly. Every day we wait, his plan advances and your trail gets colder. We go to the bunker, we find the proof, we clear your name. And if it goes wrong? Ryan asked quietly. Sarah's gaze drifted toward the hallway where Lily had disappeared. It can't go wrong, she said simply. Too much is at stake. The gravity of their situation hung heavy in the pre-dawn light. They were 3 people, a disgraced CEO, a dishwasher with a secret past, and an aging professor, planning to take on powerful forces with unlimited resources. The odds were overwhelming. Yet as Ryan looked at Sarah's determined face, he felt something he hadn't experienced since his world collapsed. Hope. As dawn broke over the Catskills, Ryan and Sarah prepared for their journey to the secret bunker. Eleanor would remain at the cabin with Lily, away from the danger that lay ahead. I still think this is too risky, Ryan argued as he packed a small bag. If Marcus is there, he won't be, Sarah countered, checking the burner phone's battery. Men like him delegate the dangerous work. He'll have someone else guarding the bunker, if anyone. Ryan studied Sarah's methodical preparations. You've done this kind of thing before, haven't you? More than just cybersecurity analysis. Sarah hesitated. The State Department job wasn't entirely conventional. Let's leave it at that. In the kitchen, Lily sat with Eleanor, drawing pictures while the adults prepared. Ryan paused to watch her, marveling at how this child's simple act of kindness had cascaded into something so profound. If she hadn't warned him at the restaurant. "You really care about her," Sarah observed, following his gaze. "She saved my life," Ryan said simply, "and now I've put her in danger." "We'll protect her," Sarah assured him. That's what adults do. As Ryan and Sarah made final preparations, Lily approached with a folded paper. "I made this for your trip." Ryan unfolded it to find a childish drawing of 3 stick figures, a tall man, a woman, and a small girl, all holding hands with the sun shining above them. "That's us," Lily explained. "After the bad men are gone and everyone's happy again." Ryan swallowed the lump in his throat. "It's perfect, Lily. I'll keep it safe." Eleanor pulled Ryan aside before they departed. "I've been monitoring news channels. The narrative is shifting. They're suggesting you fled the country. Someone's trying to divert attention from your actual location. Marcus covering his tracks," Ryan surmised, "making sure no one interferes with whatever he's planning." "There's something else," Eleanor added, lowering her voice. "I did some digging on Project Sentinel. It's mentioned in classified documents as financial infrastructure protection. Whatever it is, it safeguards something critical to global markets." Ryan's eyes widened. "That's why they needed my security protocols. They're not just stealing data, they're preparing to attack whatever Sentinel protects." With this ominous realization hanging over them, Ryan and Sarah prepared to leave. Their plan was simple but dangerous. Drive to the Adirondacks under assumed identities, access the bunker using Ryan's biometric credentials, retrieve the backup data proving his innocence, and escape before anyone discovered their presence. Lily hugged her mother tightly. "Come back safe, Mom, promise." "I promise, sweetie." Sarah knelt to her daughter's level. "Listen to Eleanor, okay? She'll take care of you until we get back." As they headed toward the door, Lily suddenly called out, "Wait! I forgot something important." She ran to her backpack and pulled out a small, worn teddy bear with a faded bow tie. "This is Mr. Whiskers. He keeps bad dreams away." She pressed the bear into Ryan's hands. "You need him more than me right now." Ryan accepted the stuffed animal, profoundly moved by the child's generosity. "I'll bring him back safely, I promise." The drive to the Adirondacks took 5 hours, mostly on rural back roads to avoid detection. Sarah proved to be a skilled driver, evading a police checkpoint and twice changing routes when she suspected they were being followed. "How did you end up washing dishes?" Ryan asked during a quiet stretch of road. "With your skills, you could work anywhere in tech." Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "My ex-husband had gambling problems. He took out loans from dangerous people, then disappeared, leaving me with his debts and a 3-year-old daughter. We lived on the run for years, until I was sure they'd stopped looking for us. By then, my security clearance was long gone, and my resume had a 5-year gap. Washing dishes doesn't require background checks." "I'm sorry," Ryan said, realizing how inadequate the words sounded. "Don't be. We survived." Sarah glanced at him. "Now it's your turn to survive." As dusk fell, they reached the remote location of the bunker, an innocuous metal door built into a hillside, concealed by decades of overgrowth. To a casual observer, it appeared to be nothing more than an abandoned utility structure. Ryan approached the camouflaged entrance, brushing aside vines to reveal a weathered keypad. He entered a complex sequence, then placed his palm against the scanner. After a tense moment, the ancient door released with a hydraulic hiss. "Welcome back, Mr. Mitchell," announced a computerized voice. "Last access, 3 days ago." Ryan and Sarah exchanged alarmed glances. 3 days ago," Ryan whispered. "Someone's already been here." The bunker's interior was cold and dimly lit. emergency lighting casting long shadows across concrete walls. Ryan led Sarah through a series of narrow corridors until they reached the main server room, a stark contrast to the Cold War architecture surrounding it. Here, state-of-the-art equipment hummed efficiently, banks of servers preserved behind climate-controlled glass. 3 days ago, Ryan repeated, accessing the security logs, someone entered using my biometric signature. Sarah examined the readout. That's impossible unless they had my actual fingerprints and retinal scan, Ryan finished grimly, which means this goes beyond just stealing my access codes. Someone physically acquired my biometric data. The implications were chilling. Only someone extremely close to Ryan could have gathered such personal data without his knowledge. The betrayal ran deeper than he'd imagined. Ryan connected to the backup servers, fingers flying across keyboards as he navigated through encrypted layers of security. Despite everything, he felt a flicker of pride. His systems were working exactly as designed, faithfully preserving evidence of their own compromise. There, he said finally, pointing to lines of code scrolling across the screen. The original intrusion. 3 weeks ago, someone installed a dormant subroutine using my credentials. It remained inactive until 4 days ago, when it executed the breach protocol. Sarah leaned closer, eyes narrowing as she analyzed the code. This is sophisticated, military-grade, not the work of common hackers. And look at the target files, Ryan added, bringing up another screen. They weren't after client data. Those breaches were just cover for the real target, Project Sentinel's command architecture. What exactly does Sentinel protect? Sarah asked. Ryan hesitated before answering. I was never told specifics, national security compartmentalization. I just built the security framework, but based on these access patterns. He studied the data, face paling. I think Sentinel protects the Federal Reserve's internal transaction systems, the digital infrastructure that makes global banking possible. Sarah's expression grew grave. If someone gained control of that, they could trigger economic collapse, manipulate markets, or siphon billions without detection, Ryan confirmed. The ultimate inside job. They worked methodically, gathering evidence of the intrusion and copying it to secure drives. The data told a damning story. Marcus Chen had been planning this operation for at least a year, gradually inserting himself into positions of trust while laying groundwork for Ryan's downfall. He needed you discredited and on the run, Sarah observed. A disgraced fugitive can't credibly expose a conspiracy. As they delved deeper, another disturbing pattern emerged. The infiltration of Sentinel wasn't just about stealing money, it was about installing permanent back doors, ensuring long-term control over the system. This is bigger than Marcus, Ryan realized. He's working for someone with enormous resources. This operation would cost millions to execute, and would generate billions in return, Sarah added grimly. A soft ping from one of the monitors caught their attention. Someone had accessed the bunker's outer security system. They were no longer alone. We need to go, Sarah whispered urgently. Now. Ryan quickly finished the download, securing the thumb drive in his pocket. There's another exit, a ventilation shaft that leads to a gully 1/2 mile east. They moved swiftly through the bunker's corridors, hearing the main entrance open behind them. Ryan led Sarah to a utility room where he removed a panel from the wall, revealing a narrow metal tunnel. It'll be tight, but we can make it, he whispered. Ladies first. Sarah had just entered the shaft when a familiar voice echoed from the doorway. Ryan, I'm disappointed. Ryan turned slowly to face Marcus Chen, his former head of security and trusted friend. Marcus stood flanked by 2 armed men in tactical gear, private security, not federal agents. How could you do it, Marcus? Ryan asked, buying time as Sarah silently continued through the ventilation shaft. I trusted you. Marcus's expression remained impassive. It was never personal, Ryan. You built something too valuable to be left in idealistic hands. Some opportunities transcend friendship. You destroyed my life, Ryan said, genuine pain in his voice. For money. For power, Marcus corrected. The kind of power your naive ethics would never let you grasp. The system you built is the key to controlling global finance. Did you really think they'd let someone like you hold that key? They, Ryan pressed, stalling as long as possible. Marcus smiled thinly. You'll meet them soon enough. They're quite interested in discussing your recent activities. He gestured to his men. Search him. He has something we need. Ryan tensed, prepared to fight, despite the overwhelming odds. His hand closed around the thumb drive in his pocket. Ryan assessed his options in the split second before Marcus's men reached him. The ventilation shaft behind him was his only escape route, but entering it would reveal Sarah's position. Fighting was suicide against armed professionals. That left only one option: surrender the drive and find another way. Looking for this? Ryan pulled out the thumb drive, holding it up. Your insurance policy against your employers? Or evidence of your betrayal? A flicker of surprise crossed Marcus's face. Hand it over and this ends cleanly. Like you ended Tech Vault cleanly? Ryan countered, anger rising. Like you destroyed my reputation cleanly? Tell me, Marcus, how long before your partners decide you're expendable too? Marcus's expression hardened. The drive, Ryan. Now. Ryan moved as if to comply, then suddenly hurled the drive across the room toward an open drain in the floor. Marcus lunged for it, momentarily distracted. In that instant, Ryan slammed his palm against the emergency shutdown button on the wall. Alarms blared as the bunker's lights cut out, replaced by dim red emergency lighting. The ventilation system roared to life at maximum power, standard protocol to clear air during a potential containment breach. Ryan dove for the shaft entrance, propelled by the sudden air current. Behind him, he heard Marcus shouting orders and the sound of the thumb drive being retrieved from the floor drain. But it was too late. Ryan was already deep in the ventilation system, the powerful airflow pushing him rapidly through the metal tunnels. He found Sarah waiting at a junction, her face illuminated by the soft glow of her phone's flashlight. "Smart move with the emergency systems," she whispered. "But they got the drive." Ryan allowed himself a grim smile. "They got a drive. The real one is here." He patted his other pocket. Basic misdirection, always have a decoy. Sarah looked impressed. "The one they have?" "Empty. Corrupted. It'll buy us time while they try to recover non-existent data." They continued through the ventilation network until they reached the exit, a rusted grate opening into a wooded gully, just as Ryan had promised. The night air felt crisp and clean after the bunker's stale atmosphere. "We need to move quickly," Sarah said, orienting herself. "The car is 3 miles southeast." They set off through the dense forest, using only starlight to navigate. Ryan's mind raced, processing everything he'd learned. Marcus wasn't working alone. He had powerful backers, people with the resources to orchestrate a conspiracy of this magnitude. "Who do you think they are?" Sarah asked, echoing his thoughts. "Whoever stands to gain from controlling the Federal Reserve systems," Ryan replied. "Hedge funds, foreign governments, criminal syndicates. The list of suspects is long and powerful." They had walked for nearly an hour when Sarah suddenly froze, raising her hand for silence. In the distance, they heard the distinct sound of dogs barking. "Search parties. They're tracking us," she whispered. "We can't outrun dogs." Ryan scanned their surroundings desperately. "The stream. We need to walk through water to mask our scent." They located a shallow creek nearby and waded through its icy waters for half a mile before emerging onto rocky terrain that would leave minimal tracks. The dogs' barking grew fainter behind them, but both knew their advantage was temporary. When they finally reached their hidden vehicle, Ryan felt a surge of relief until he saw the slashed tires and open hood. They found the car, Sarah stated the obvious, quickly checking inside. Engine's been disabled too. We're stranded. Ryan checked the burner phone. No signal in these remote mountains. They were miles from civilization, pursued by armed men, with crucial evidence that could topple powerful people. We need to keep moving, Ryan decided. Find a main road, flag down help. Or steal transportation, Sarah suggested, pointing to lights visible through the trees, a small cabin with an ATV parked outside. Ryan hesitated. We can't involve more innocent people. We're not involving them, Sarah clarified, just borrowing their vehicle. Leave cash as payment. The plan worked smoothly. The cabin's occupants, weekend hunters, were asleep as they quietly disconnected the ATV's ignition lock and pushed it a safe distance before starting the engine. Ryan left $500 wedged under the cabin's door. By dawn, they had reached a small town where they purchased prepaid phones and called Eleanor. "Thank God," Eleanor answered immediately. "I was about to call in favors with some very uncomfortable people." "We're safe," Ryan assured her. "We have the evidence. Is Lily okay?" "She's fine, worried about her mother, but resilient." Eleanor paused. "But there's a complication. Someone came asking questions at nearby houses, showed federal credentials, but felt wrong. I moved Lily to my colleague's cabin 5 miles deeper in the woods." Ryan and Sarah exchanged worried glances. "We're coming back," Sarah said firmly. "No," Eleanor countered. "They're watching all roads into the area. And Ryan, your face is everywhere. They're calling you an enemy of the state now, claiming you've stolen nuclear secrets. It's escalating." "They're desperate," Ryan realized. "The drive we took has enough evidence to expose their entire operation. They need to discredit me completely before I can release it." "So release it," Eleanor said simply. "I have secure academic channels. Send me the data." Ryan considered this. "It's not that simple. The evidence is encrypted. I need specialized equipment to access it fully. Equipment they'll expect me to seek out. Which means they'll be watching anyone who can help you," Sarah concluded. "Exactly. And there's only one person with the technical expertise and equipment we need." Ryan took a deep breath. "James Walsh, my former CFO." "The man who dropped you at the first sign of trouble?" Sarah asked skeptically. "He had no choice. The board forced him out too." Ryan's expression was determined. "James is a good man caught in a bad situation, and he lives off the grid in New Hampshire. If anyone can help us decrypt this evidence safely, it's him." Sarah nodded slowly. "New Hampshire it is, but Eleanor, keep Lily moving. These people won't hesitate to use a child as leverage." "Understood," Eleanor replied grimly. "And Ryan, whoever these people are, they're playing for keeps now. Be careful." As they ended the call, Sarah turned to Ryan, her expression grave. "You understand what this means? We can't go back until this is over. Not to Eleanor, not to Lily." "We'd lead them straight there." Ryan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility for these lives, now intertwined with his own. "Then we end this, whatever it takes." James Walsh's remote cabin in the White Mountains of New Hampshire was a technological anomaly, a state-of-the-art data center disguised as a rustic retreat. Solar panels and a small wind turbine provided independent power, while satellite links offered secure communications beyond conventional networks. Ryan and Sarah approached cautiously, having abandoned the ATV miles back and hiked the remaining distance. They watched the property for hours before approaching, verifying no surveillance teams were in place. "This is crazy," Sarah muttered as they finally walked up the gravel path. "We're trusting the same man who abandoned you when Tech Vault collapsed." "James didn't abandon me," Ryan insisted. "He tried to warn me. There's a difference." Before they could knock, the cabin door swung open. James Walsh stood in the doorway, shotgun lowered but ready, his once polished executive appearance replaced by a beard and flannel shirt. "Took you long enough," he said, stepping aside to let them enter. "I've been expecting you for days." Inside, the cabin's rustic exterior gave way to a sophisticated command center, multiple screens displaying news feeds, market data, and security camera footage. "How did you know we were coming?" Ryan asked, amazed. James secured the door behind them. "Because I know you, Ryan, and I know what happened at Tech Vault wasn't an accident." He gestured to the screens. "I've been tracking the real story while hiding out here. The moment I saw the breach pattern, I recognized Marcus's handiwork." "You knew he was behind it?" Sarah asked sharply. "Suspected," James clarified. "Marcus always had outside connections that made me uncomfortable. Too many private meetings, too many unexplained trips. But I had no proof until the breach happened." Ryan produced the thumb drive. "Now we have proof, but it's encrypted with Tech Vault's proprietary system." James took the drive, examining it. "I can decrypt this, but it'll take time. And once I start, we'll leave digital fingerprints that sophisticated operators might detect." "How long?" Sarah pressed. 12 hours minimum, maybe more." James met Ryan's eyes. "Are you sure about this? The kind of people who could orchestrate something this complex won't hesitate to eliminate loose ends." "We're already loose ends," Ryan pointed out grimly. "At least this way we're loose ends with a plan." While James began the complex decryption process, Ryan and Sarah took turns resting and standing watch. As dawn approached, James called them to his workstation, his expression grave. "You need to see this, all of it." The decrypted files revealed a conspiracy far larger than they had imagined. Project Sentinel didn't just protect the Federal Reserve systems, it was the keystone of a classified program called Financial Shield, designed to prevent catastrophic economic warfare against the United States. "They weren't just after money," James explained, scrolling through the data. "They're after control. These modifications to Sentinel create undetectable backdoors into the entire global banking infrastructure." Ryan studied the code with growing horror. With this access, they could trigger market crashes, manipulate currency values, even freeze entire national economies. "Economic terrorism," Sarah whispered. "Invisible, deniable, and devastating." James nodded. "And they needed you gone, Ryan, because you designed Sentinel's core security protocols. You'd have recognized the intrusions eventually. But the most shocking revelation came in the form of a restricted communication log, messages between Marcus and his employers. Ryan opened the file, then physically recoiled from the screen. "This can't be right," he breathed. Sarah leaned forward to see what had shocked him. The messages revealed Marcus's employer, a classified division of the National Security Agency called Project Monarch. "The government?" Sarah looked confused. "Why would U.S. intelligence sabotage their own systems?" "Not the government," Ryan corrected, scrolling further. "A faction within the government. Look at these authorizations. Only 3 names. No oversight committees, no judicial review. This is a rogue operation." James nodded grimly. "A cabal of intelligence officials and financial power brokers creating a backdoor into the global economy. The ultimate insider trading scheme, backed by national security clearances. And if caught, they have the perfect scapegoat," Ryan added bitterly. "The disgraced tech CEO who betrayed his country for profit." As the full picture emerged, so did their danger. These weren't just wealthy conspirators. They were powerful government insiders with virtually unlimited resources and the ability to operate under the cover of national security. "We need to release this publicly," Sarah decided. "All of it." "Not possible," James countered. "Most major news platforms have intelligence connections. They'd bury it as a national security matter before it saw daylight." Then we need someone with a direct line to the highest levels, Ryan realized. Someone who can't be silenced or intimidated. You're thinking of Director Catherine Hayes, James guessed, referring to the formidable head of the FBI's cyber division. She has the authority and integrity to act on this. And she hates unauthorized intelligence operations, Ryan added. She's testified against domestic surveillance overreach multiple times. Sarah looked skeptical. How exactly do we reach the FBI's cyber division director when you're their most wanted fugitive? Ryan smiled for the first time in days. We don't reach out to her. We make her come to us. The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. Create a secure public Dropbox containing a heavily redacted preview of their evidence, then trigger alerts guaranteed to attract the FBI Cyber Division's attention without also bringing down the full force of Project Monarch. It's like threading a needle while skydiving, James observed as they worked through the night, preparing their digital breadcrumbs. The key is the encryption, Ryan explained, programming a sophisticated algorithm. We're creating a data package that only Director Hayes can unlock, using verification protocols specific to her division. Sarah, who had been monitoring police and intelligence communications, looked up from her screen. We have another problem. Eleanor isn't answering our check-in signals. Ryan's hands froze over the keyboard. What was her last message? 4 hours ago. Standard all-clear code. Sarah's expression was grim. Could be nothing. Bad reception, dead battery, or they found them, Ryan finished, a cold dread settling in his stomach. We need to move faster. By dawn, their trap was set. The redacted evidence files, just enough to prove conspiracy without revealing the full extent of their knowledge, were secured in a specially designed digital vault. The access protocols would send alerts directly to Director Hayes' secure systems, bypassing standard FBI channels that might be compromised. Now we just need a way to tell her it's not a trap, James said. She needs to know this isn't just another manipulation. I have an idea, Sarah replied, turning to Ryan. Your professor, Eleanor. Doesn't she have academic connections, colleagues who might have worked with government agencies? Ryan's eyes widened. Better than that, Eleanor's ex-husband is Frank Donovan, Deputy Attorney General. They're still on good terms, if Eleanor reached out to him. But we can't reach Eleanor, James pointed out. Sarah stood suddenly. We can't. But Lily might. The realization hit Ryan like a physical blow. We can't involve a 7-year-old child in this. She's already involved, Sarah said firmly, and we're not asking her to do anything dangerous, just to call someone if she hasn't heard from Eleanor. While it took hours of careful planning, but they eventually established a secure channel to Lily through a series of public library computers and encrypted messaging apps. The message they received back chilled them to the bone. Mom, men came to the cabin. Eleanor made me hide in the special place she showed me. She didn't come back. I'm scared, but I'm being brave, like you said. I'm at the neighbor's house now. They're nice, but they don't know anything. Sarah's face drained of color as she read her daughter's message. They have Eleanor. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll get her back, but first we need Lily completely safe. Lee. They arranged for Frank Donovan to personally retrieve Lily and place her in protected custody, a process that required careful verification on both sides to ensure it wasn't a trap. By nightfall, they received confirmation. Lily was secure, and Frank Donovan was reviewing their preliminary evidence. It's working, James reported as secure messages began arriving. Director Hayes has the access codes. She's assembling a trusted team off the official channels. Their momentary relief was shattered by an alert from James's perimeter sensors. Vehicle approaching, he announced, switching to exterior camera feeds. Black SUV, government plates. They watched tensely as the vehicle stopped at the base of the driveway. 2 men in tactical gear emerged, followed by a familiar figure, Marcus Chen. They found us, Ryan whispered. But how? Sarah's expression darkened with realization. Eleanor, they must have made her talk. We need to leave, now. James activated a hidden panel, revealing a concealed exit behind a bookcase. This leads to a tunnel. It comes out half a mile away, where I keep an emergency vehicle. Ryan hesitated, looking at the screens where their evidence was still being transmitted. The upload isn't complete. We need 10 more minutes for the full package to transfer. We don't have 10 minutes, Sarah hissed as the men began advancing up the driveway. James made a split-second decision. You two go. I'll finish the upload and follow. James, this isn't negotiable, Ryan. You designed Sentinel. You're the only one who can fully explain what they've done to it. The world needs you alive. James checked his shotgun. I can buy you time. The gravity of the sacrifice James was offering hung in the air between them. After a moment, Ryan clasped his friend's shoulder. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, James replied grimly. Now go. Ryan and Sarah hurried through the hidden passage, the sound of James barricading the cabin door behind them. The tunnel was narrow and damp, forcing them to move in single file through the darkness, guided only by the faint glow of emergency lighting strips along the floor. They had nearly reached the exit when they heard gunshots echoing through the tunnel, sharp, rapid bursts, followed by the deeper boom of James's shotgun. Then silence. Sarah's face was etched with determination as they emerged from the tunnel into the cool night air. We can't let his sacrifice be for nothing. The emergency vehicle, an old but well-maintained Jeep, was exactly where James had promised, keys hidden in a magnetic box under the frame. As they sped away along Forest Service roads, Ryan's phone pinged with a final message from James's system. Upload complete. Hayes has everything. Godspeed. Ryan stared at the message, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. He made it, at least long enough to finish. Sarah gripped the steering wheel tightly. Then we keep moving. We meet Hayes at the rendezvous point, and we end this. For James, for Eleanor, for Lily, for everyone they've hurt. As they drove through the darkness, Ryan realized their small group of fugitives had somehow become the last line of defense against a conspiracy that threatened global stability. The odds were overwhelming, their resources minimal, their enemies powerful. Yet for the first time since his world collapsed, Ryan felt something beyond hope. He felt purpose. Whatever happened next, he would see this through. He owed that much to the people who had sacrificed for him, especially a small girl who had offered kindness to a stranger in his darkest moment. The agreed rendezvous point was an abandoned factory outside Albany, neutral ground chosen by Director Hayes for its multiple exit routes and minimal surveillance. Ryan and Sarah arrived at midnight, parking the Jeep behind rusted machinery that had once manufactured automotive parts. This feels like a trap, Sarah murmured, scanning the darkened building. It probably is, Ryan agreed. The question is, whose trap? They waited in tense silence until precisely 12:30 a.m. when headlights appeared at the factory's gate. Two unmarked SUVs entered the compound, circling to create a defensive perimeter before stopping. From the lead vehicle emerged a tall woman with short silver hair and the unmistakable bearing of someone accustomed to command. Director Hayes, Ryan breathed. She actually came herself. They watched as Hayes surveyed the area, flanked by 4 agents in tactical gear. After a moment's assessment, she spoke into her radio, then walked alone to the center of the factory floor, directly under the moonlight streaming through broken roof panels. That's our cue, Ryan said, stepping from their hiding place with hands raised. Sarah followed, maintaining a careful distance. Hayes watched their approach with an inscrutable expression. Mr. Mitchell, you've caused quite a stir in Washington. Not by choice, Ryan replied evenly. Clearly. Hayes gestured to a folding table her team had set up. Your evidence is compelling. Disturbing, but compelling. Deputy AG Donovan vouches for its authenticity, and my technical team confirms the code intrusions match your claims. Relief washed over Ryan. Then you believe us. I believe the evidence, Hayes corrected. Project Monarch exists, operates without proper oversight, and has compromised our financial security systems. What I don't yet understand is why. Power, Sarah suggested. Control over global markets. Hayes nodded slowly. Among other things, we've identified the three principals behind Monarch. Assistant Director Langley from NSA, General Warren from Cyber Command, and Senator Phillips from the Intelligence Committee. A perfect triad, Ryan observed. Intelligence access, military resources, and political protection. They're being contained as we speak, Hayes continued. But Marcus Chen remains at large, along with several operational teams. Which brings me to my next question. Her gaze sharpened. Where is Eleanor Wells? Sarah stepped forward. They took her when they raided her cabin. We believe she's being held as leverage. Hayes nodded grimly. We've traced a secure facility in the Berkshires that appears to be Monarch's operational headquarters. If Dr. Wells is anywhere, she's there. Then what are we waiting for? Ryan demanded. We need to get her out. It's not that simple, Hayes cautioned. The facility is legally sanctioned as an intelligence black site. Without irrefutable evidence of criminality occurring inside, I can't authorize a raid. But you have our evidence, Sarah argued, which proves conspiracy but not kidnapping. Not yet. Hayes's expression softened slightly. I understand your frustration, but I need to move carefully. These are powerful people with legal protections. Ryan felt despair threatening to overwhelm him again. After everything they'd risked, the wheels of bureaucracy would still protect the guilty. Eleanor remained in danger, perhaps being tortured for information, while they stood discussing legal technicalities. Then a thought struck him. What if we had proof of Eleanor's location? Proof they're holding her illegally? Hayes raised an eyebrow. That would change the equation considerably. Ryan turned to Sarah. The tracking device. The one Eleanor showed us at the cabin. Sarah's eyes widened with realization. Her emergency protocol. She wears a biomonitor disguised as a medical alert bracelet. It transmits location data if she doesn't enter a daily code. Can you access that data? Hayes asked sharply. Not directly, Ryan admitted, but Lily might know how. Eleanor would have shown her as part of their safety plan. Within minutes, they had established a secure call to Lily under Donovan's protection. The child's voice was small, but steady, as she explained what Eleanor had taught her. A website address, a special password combining Lily's birthday and a color sequence. Ryan entered the information on Hayes's secure laptop. A map appeared, showing a pulsing red dot in the Berkshire Mountains. That's her, Sarah confirmed, and the biometrics show elevated heart rate and stress markers. She's alive, but in distress. Hayes examined the data, then made her decision. This is enough. The biomonitor data constitutes evidence of duress, and combined with your other evidence, gives me authority to act. She stood abruptly. Mr. Mitchell, Miss Parker, I need you to remain here under protection. My team will handle the extraction. With all due respect, Director, Ryan said firmly, I'm going with you. I got Eleanor into this. I'm getting her out. And Lily needs her grandmother back, Sarah added. I'm coming too. Hayes studied them for a long moment before nodding reluctantly. You'll remain in the command vehicle, following my orders explicitly. Is that clear? 2 hours later, they watched through night vision monitors as Hayes's tactical team breached the Monarch facility, a nondescript office building disguised as a private research center. The operation was surgical, with agents systematically securing each section with minimal force. Target located, came a voice over the radio. Sub-level 2, room 5. One civilian female appears unharmed, 2 hostiles in custody. Relief flooded through Ryan and Sarah as the video feed showed Eleanor being escorted safely from the building, wrapped in a shock blanket but walking under her own power. One more hostile located, another agent reported. East Wing, attempting to access secure servers, moving to intercept. The camera feed switched to show Marcus Chen frantically working at a computer terminal. As agents surrounded him, he raised his hands in surrender, his face a mask of calculated calm, even in defeat. "It's over," Ryan breathed, watching as his former friend was led away in handcuffs. "We did it." Dawn was breaking as they reunited with Eleanor at a secure FBI facility. Despite her ordeal, the professor was remarkably composed, her academic mind already analyzing her captivity experience with clinical detachment. "They wanted to know what you'd discovered and where you were hiding," she explained. "I fed them misinformation as long as possible. They were growing, impatient." The reunion with Lily, however, broke through Eleanor's stoic facade. The child launched herself into her mother's arms, both of them dissolving into tears as they held each other. Ryan watched from a respectful distance, moved by the scene yet feeling strangely apart, until Lily spotted him and ran over. "You kept your promise," she said, smiling up at him. "You fixed everything." "We fixed it together," Ryan corrected, kneeling to her level. "You were the bravest of all of us." In the days that followed, the conspiracy unraveled publicly. The principals behind Project Monarch faced federal charges, while Marcus cooperated extensively, revealing a network of corruption that stretched into major financial institutions and foreign intelligence services. Ryan testified before closed congressional committees, explaining the technical details of the Sentinel compromise and helping develop new protections. His name was publicly cleared, though TechVault remained defunct, collateral damage that couldn't be undone. 1 month after their ordeal began, Ryan met Sarah and Lily at a small cafe in Brooklyn, far from the restaurant where they'd first encountered each other. Lily was enrolled in a proper school now, thriving with stability and security, while Sarah had accepted a cybersecurity consulting position with Director Hayes' division. "So what's next for the exonerated tech genius?" Sarah asked, as Lily colored contentedly beside her. Ryan smiled, more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "I'm starting over, something smaller this time, more focused. A security firm specializing in protecting vulnerable infrastructure, hospitals, schools, local governments. Places that can't afford enterprise-level security but need it most." "Sounds noble," Sarah observed, "and probably not very profitable." "I've had profit," Ryan replied simply. "I want purpose now." He hesitated, then pushed a folder across the table. "Actually, I was hoping you might consider joining me. Your skills are extraordinary, and your perspective is valuable to me." Sarah raised an eyebrow, a smile playing at her lips. "Are you offering me a job, Mr. Mitchell?" "A partnership," he clarified. "Equal stake, equal say. I provide the technical framework, you handle the human security elements. Together, we build something worthwhile." Sarah considered this for a moment before turning to her daughter. "What do you think, Lily? Should we work with Mr. Ryan?" Lily looked up from her coloring, regarding them both with that uncannily perceptive gaze. "You should," she said matter-of-factly. "He's sad when he's alone, and you smile more when he's around." Ryan and Sarah exchanged surprised glances, then laughed, a genuine, unburdened sound neither had experienced in too long. "Well," Sarah said, extending her hand formally, "I believe we have a partnership, Mr. Mitchell." As Ryan shook her hand, he felt something he'd thought lost forever in that restaurant weeks ago. Not just hope or purpose, but possibility. A chance to rebuild not just his career, but his life, with people who had seen him at his worst and helped him find his best. And it had all begun with a small act of kindness, a little girl offering a napkin to a stranger in tears.